Right. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'd like to welcome you all for this webinar. And I'm thankful to Asif and Farooq. This is the second webinar which we are collaborating with them on regulatory related issues. So today, digital onboarding is one of the issues which we are facing, especially after the COVID, the account, you see the branch opening account and all those things have now been shifted to digital account opening and digital verification. So seamless and consumer friendly account opening is very, very critical. Nowadays, more and more work is being done on onboarding, which actually includes things like artificial intelligence, training videos, engaging people, and then obviously this is very important for open banking. State Bank of Pakistan also has done a lot of work with regard to digitalization. And you can say that, the Roshan digital account, which is offered now, it's completely digital. It's opening. Now we are working on RAS, our payment systems, our micropayment systems, which actually will lead ultimately in the next couple of months and years to a completely different platform. So digital onboarding is one of the critical things where we have to consider all the AML, the anti-money laundering, and the counter terrorism, CFT related regulations into account, and the KYC requirement as well. So it is not only important for open banking, but it is important for all fintech, which is actually growing and it's going to come in. These are the things which are going to come in the future. So again, we'd like to welcome and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Riaz Shonara. It is indeed a pleasure to listen to you. Now, I would like to basically call upon Dr. Qaisar Anis from Pakistan Business Professional Council, Abu Dhabi, to have some introductory remarks. Over to you, Dr. Qaisar.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And my thanks to the Alif Technology and NBA for inviting me for the remark. It's a very important subject. I must express my admiration to State Bank of Pakistan Governor Zakir Saab, and I appreciate Riaz Shonara Saab joining on this important subject for onboarding on investment. This has really turned the table. If you have seen where the currency is stabilizing on, as per Durham, I'm talking to going to 43. And it's long, it is holding on 43. And because of this initiative, which has been taken, and I thank Asif Zaman for taking the lead, and Farooq Khan taking the lead on this, because these two gentlemen I see very active in all the technology, especially on the coming to artificial intelligence, coming to all technologically based related business. I really thank them for their service to the community here in United Arab Emirates. Now, on behalf of the Pakistan Business Council, I just introduce you that I founded the council in 2004, and now we are completing more than 16 years. This council works under the Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce, and our chairman is the ambassador of Pakistan in UAE. Now is Mr. Afzal Saab. He is possibly the 9th ambassador. I'm attending that. So, and it runs with a dynamic board of nearly 11 enterprising people. So very strong council. We work on the development of trade and commerce in beginning. We work a platform between the community, between 30 business councils here. It is very beneficial. It's a very good policy from the Abu Dhabi Chamber to form a council and developing and taking information, businesses from all the countries. As you know, nearly 200 nationalities living in United Arab Emirates peacefully. And it was a prudent policy of the chamber and the rulers and the government to involve everyone in business. And that's why you see Abu Dhabi is excelling, Dubai is excelling, all the Emirates excelling. Pakistan Business Council on the Roshan digital account has already made 4 programs webinar. Because of pandemic, we took the advantage. Pandemic certainly is environment is very difficult for everyone. The business has been affected very much, health-wise, executive, worker, everyone have been affected. Alhamdulillah, with vaccine, things are getting better. And I hope that Expo 2020, when it will come in 21, will be successful here. We are all looking for that, and that will be a turning point. Coming back to the subject, we did a program with the State Bank of Pakistan on onboarding, where again, I appreciate that they allowed for the Pakistani and overseas Pakistani to open a capital market account with the broker without your personal physical presence. It's a great step. It's really difficult for us to go to the broker house or take the family members to the broker house and have opening the account. With that, things gone very easy now. We can process. I'll give you my personal experience. I have opened myself to test whether these banks are working or it's talking. It works. I opened with United Bank Limited. I opened with Standard Chartered Bank. And it doesn't take much time to open an account. And I've transacted also. So it's a great benefit and this message to 9 to 10 million people from here, that they should open this account. Already, nearly 100,000 account opened already. $480 million already been deposited. So it's a great step. So we forum like Asif Saab Forum or everyone is to give the message to the overseas Pakistani that it is good stuff. Do capital market also, they have a Sharia compliant. They have also done nearly $145 million and nearly $165 million in normal accounts. So nearly $300 million investment. It's a great success done by them. So we are doing good. The government of Pakistan, Imran Khan, I feel that his direction is good. He needs more good professionals with him. And I'm sure with matter of time, he will do. But I have a point here for the overseas Pakistan. And I have a request from the government of Pakistan with this message I'm giving, and every time I give, that they should honor overseas Pakistan. They are not honoring that level. They should think about. We are always feel about Pakistan. We always contribute to Pakistan whenever they call. But they should consider us. They should involve in all the ministries, in all the business. The economy will change. China changed because of overseas Chinese. So this is the message I want to part with this important event organized by Alif Technology with the State Bank of Pakistan. With that, I close. I really thank, and I'm looking for all the speakers, and I want to learn, be educated, because everyone has been learning every day. And that's what this world. And also, I have a message to the government of Pakistan: adopt the technology as United Arab Emirates has done it. Work as per technology. Use as much technology in Pakistan as they can, and you will feel success, income will grow, the welfare of people will grow. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I'm here for the Pakistan Business Council. I'm also part of a partner for Elliott Hadi Shai Chartered Accountant and Elliott Management Consulting from here for the last 40 years. All the best to everyone for this event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kasani, for this thoughtful speech and also some insights and facts and figures. I think that they really helped facing the panel discussion, inshallah. So with that, I would like to call upon Syed Asif Zaman to say a few words about Alif Technologies and about this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Alif Technologies e-learning series. At Alif Technology, we always strive to bring to the table for the discussion latest technology updates and trend around the globe. Our today topic, which is now the basis for digital economy, is digital onboarding, the key to fintech success. Every project, especially the fintech related, must face the challenges of digital onboarding as this is one of the key ingredients for the success of fintech recipe. The issue is to keep the user experience as smooth and seamless as possible while fulfilling the regulatory requirement like KYC, AML, TEFRIS, CDD, among others. Further, complication arise due to the data governance requirement, for instance, maintaining a balance between transparency and data protection. Cybersecurity is yet another issue that has to be addressed properly. In this webinar, world-class experts will be sharing their insight and discuss issues and challenges facing the digital onboarding in the fintech era. I thanks to all the esteemed speakers for joining us and our knowledge partner and industry partner for making this happen. This webinar jointly hosted by Alif Technologies and NIBAF, State Bank of Pakistan, and our partner for this webinars are Pakistan Business and Professional Council, Abu Dhabi, Institute of Cost and Management Accountant of Pakistan, the University of Lahore, and Alham Academy. The moderator of this program will be Dr. Farooq Habib, MD and co-host of Alif Technology. To you, Dr. Farooq.
Thank you so much, Asif. Just a small announcement that some people are asking whether they can ask a question and when they can ask, where they can ask. So actually, we will have, inshallah, 4 speakers, and they have 15-minute slots. Everybody will be presenting something with the PowerPoint slides, number 1. And after all the presentations, we will open the floor for Q&A and panel discussion. So with that, I mean, you can still post a question anytime you would like. And but I would recommend that whenever you are posting a question, please mention the name of the speaker or presenter or whom you are asking the question. And also, please be specific and focus on the topic. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So with that, I would like to basically introduce our first speaker, Syed Faraz Anwar. He's a forerunner and visionary in modern day consulting. Faraz is well recognized for his contributions within the financial services sector in Pakistan. He consistently spearheads thought leadership initiatives, actively participates in regulatory reform agenda, largely pertaining to financial sector policymaking, focuses on adoption of global best practices and standards, and acts as a catalyst, an influencer, and enabler to various stakeholders on key market developments, challenges, and macroeconomic trends. Recently, Faraz has focused on digital banking, digital payments, industry disruption, fintechs, customer experience, and strategic use of innovative technology to enable clients in achieving their business and growth objectives in a tech-driven era. Currently, he is a partner in business and risk consulting with the PwC Pakistan. So with that, I would like to invite Syed Faraz Anwar. Faraz, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Riaz. Thank you very much, Farooq, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that I'm audible, Farooq. If there's any need for me to be more audible, or perhaps if you feel that my slides
you are loud and clear, and you are loud and clear, and I can see your screen as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it is indeed a pleasure. I mean, whenever I speak in the events that are organized by NIBAF, and this is the first time I'm sharing my perspective at an event which is being co-hosted by Alif Technologies. Thank you very much, Farooq, and pleasure to see the interest and to see the turnaround. So today we are going to talk about the importance of a seamless digital onboarding experience for fintechs. Primarily, we're going to talk about fintechs, payment firms, and similar challenge institutions. So for such organizations which have major business model sensitivities, we have always believed that the customer margins are largely a function of the deeper engagement that institutions are able to do with these customers and a very optimized cost of acquisition and service. So when you see globally, there is a divisor of 10 to 15 times of 10 to 15 times when we compare digital onboarding cost to the traditional onboarding costs. And that is because of the scalable technology that these institutions generally possess and the least of the human intervention But if we look at the local context, because I would actually like to relate it to some of the experiences that we have locally or working with various institutions in Pakistan. So you're aware of the concept of the fully loaded onboarding cost. So those are estimated in the range of about 4,000 rupees to 7,000 rupees, depending on the account opening model pursued. So that's a reasonably higher cost. So if you're talking about making it about 1/10 or 1/15th, creating that sort of a scale difference requires that an out-of-the-box thinking, which is focused on an in-app experience in entirety, is introduced. So what we will do is that we will be talking on some of the major opportunities and challenges that underlie this value proposition for the customer and for these institutions. So that's the cost side. But if we talk about the customer experience perspective, I would like to share the findings of an interesting survey that we have recently done with various customers. So more or less about 1,000 plus individuals we surveyed with diverse age demographics, income brackets, employment, and business backgrounds. So one of the trends or one of the findings was that there was a clear inclination towards convenience banking, which generally is about banking at the doorsteps. And that was because 82% of the respondents indicated that they visit the branch only once in several months or only to open the accounts. So that goes to show the kind of digital adaptation that we are now seeing. And particularly when we look at the context of a COVID impacted world, we understand that the market is very ripe for digital engagements, also for relationship creation. So essentially, this is the first point of contact of a customer. So it's more about the journey from bricks to clicks. It's about the journey from dozens of clicks to few clicks. It's about the journey that is about cost optimization from 4,000 to 7,000 rupees to about 400 to 700 rupees at the maximum, which is. So essentially, we're talking about the capability of the institution to be able to deliver on the value promise of a seamless in-app journey without any fragmented experience or broken experience. So if we talk about the 0.0 experience, which is the experience that is the digital onboarding experience, or the onboarding experience, so eventually it determines the sustainability of customer engagement going forward. So when we see the kind of customer churn, we can say that partly that is attributable to some element of judgmental error in target customer acquisition or selection. But it's not a surprise for us that a reasonable number of customers who open their accounts with banks, which are the traditional service providers, remain disengaged. And that is primarily because of their onboarding experience with the banks. So moving on and talking and taking you through to an exemplary journey for a challenging institution. So especially for EMIs, again, fintechs and similar challenge institutions, we feel that an information light and time-sensitive approach is generally used while designing the customer journey and while creating app interfaces. Considering that there may be relatively lower financial crime and related risks. And the reason is because there are account level restrictions, there are product level restrictions, and there are engagement restrictions. So if you see, this is clearly aligned with the application of simplified due diligence approach, which is permitted under the new AML-CFT regime, which is applicable for banks as well as for the other SBP regulated entities. So for example, the EMIs and PSO, PSPs and many others. So, but if you look at the most important consideration, that would probably be the identity check, which could be ideally done through direct and preferably in-app interface with NADRA for biometric verification. So if you see the global trends, global practices, there are alternates to thumb impressions. And we see that there are recent global and emerging trends where the regulators are aligning themselves with facial recognition and other emerging identity checks. So we feel that similar approaches could also be used could also be explored in the context of Pakistan, considering that we have one of the advanced identity frameworks in the world. And when we use this, with the relevant identity fraud prevention technologies and trends, which are getting very common across the world, these could provide explorable options for the scalable EMI and fintech growth, because we feel that the EMI growth or fintech growth is being challenged in Pakistan because of certain restrictions with respect to the use of these identity frameworks. So, these options or exploring the options going beyond identity, different types of diversified identity checks is probably a solution for us to consider. So as I mentioned earlier, due to underlying business models and regulatory provisions, we don't foresee a large deviation from a simplified due diligence approach. But obviously, having said that, there could be circumstances. So if those arise, there could be a possibility to put in place a video KYC process or a check. Although I can very fairly explain that it is actually like a very cost-intensive proposition, very cost-intensive, because obviously we're talking about technology, talking about checks and balances, controls, governance, compliance, whole suite of different different governance principles and frameworks. So if we talk about regulators around the globe, they prefer a liveness detection tests to be auto-performed. And this could be done as part of the KYC process, the video KYC process, but another workaround could be to require live photos or live selfies to be taken. Those are different from still photos. We are all very well aware of that. So this may require the use of third-party solutions to be deployed, and the integration tools also to be implemented. So moving on to my next slide, and if you see globally, we see that there are different types of regulations and market practices around digital onboarding. So as I've been sort of saying that at least twice, as the challenger institutions mostly deal with low to moderate customer segment risk, the focus is usually around identity check as compared to a rigorous income source or authentication or an income verification. So usually it's like a straight through process involving minimal information or documentation requirements with identity check possibilities through diversified means. And those diversified means are technologically enabled and usually integrated with public and private databases as far as possible, depending upon the country dynamics, obviously. So if you look at Malaysia, Germany, India, the institutions are allowed to pursue all different types of, permutations, combinations. So essentially, we're talking about database checks, facial recognition, or performance of the video calls or video tests or video checks. So in Pakistan also, I actually have a strong opinion that with technological support, these various options could be explored. We should not stick to one option. We can have various options. However, I feel that there needs to be a national level alignment. I think probably this is the most important bit. National level alignment among regulators, particularly the one that is running the identity framework, as to the enablement of a cost effective and time-friendly onboarding model for EMIs, fintechs, and other institutions. So if you look at this, which essentially is like a tabulation of different practices of the UK banks, certain challenger institutions in the UK, we can see that different institutions opt for different approaches. So you will see, depending upon their risk profile and appetite, so some are flexible, they are relying on still selfies, while the others prefer to have live selfies or videos and liveness proof tests and technologies as well. Okay, now I move on to slide 6, which essentially is like a technology snapshot. So if you look at this, this is giving you a bit of an idea as to different types of technological aspects that would need to be catered. And by the way, these are 5: biometrics, cognitive technology, robotic process automation, open application program interface, open API. And 5th is blockchain. And I think one of my colleagues is going to be explaining that to you in an extensive detail in a while. So if you see this, considering customer expectations about seamless journey, and when we consider the risks that are associated with financial crime and operations, I would personally prefer an upfront technology investment, considering the nature and the size of the business model that are pursued by the aspirants. But one way could be that some institutions prefer to scale their technology over time, and that is aligned with the magnitude of risk that they undertake and the kind of business that they do. But having to have a look at the various propositions here, biometrics. So essentially, if we talk about technology, so we've got facial recognition, we talked about that iris scan, and few more like voice matching. And the remaining we talked about earlier as well. So those are not just used for customer authentication, those are used for transaction processing as well. So the best part of it is because obviously we're talking about resource and cost optimization opportunities. The only way we can do that is by relying on technology to scale it with business. The other bits are interchangeable, like robotics process automation and intelligent automation. So when we talk about robotic process automation, we're talking about iterative actions and acts and tasks. So those could be used from background checks and KYC process, fraud detection, validations, data entry, and also about reading the customer documents and converting, incorporating those information within the systems and then converting a structured, unstructured document images to the structured and meaningful ones. So but this is the technology component that we are talking about. Without strategy, ladies and gentlemen, it is of no use. So essentially, we have basically seen a number of organizations failing in their robotic process automation strategy or framework is because they do not create the end-to-end strategy. They don't know which areas they would like to eventually move ahead in terms of automation through robotic process automation. So this is the key. You start off with a strategy, then you enter into the implementation stage, and then you start to reap the benefits of these technologies going forward. The third bit is cognitive technology. It has three aspects: artificial intelligence. I think Riaz also talked about that a little bit, and then machine learning, and then natural language processing. All these are like intuitive cognitive technology. So this is a little different from the automation of the iterative tasks or reiterative tasks, which are usually automated through the use of robotic process technology. But the basic theme remains the same: mitigating impersonation risks, flagging the high-risk customers, making sure that we make the ample use of open source data to identify corporate shareholding structures and related parties, better use of chatbots and virtual assistants to respond to the customer queries. So essentially, they learn with the passage of time, they learn with data, they learn with experiences. So this is the beauty of all these robots or all these systems. So essentially, from the perspective of contextualized financial services, this is the bare minimum that institutions have to have if they would like to differentiate themselves from the others. And one very basic is actually going to be open API. So essentially, with the passage of time, with open banking and with the API frameworks that are acknowledged in Pakistan, comparable to the region, we would expect to see some sort of data transfer, some sort of information transfer of the customer from one entity to the other, irrespective of the sector it belongs. So from one bank to the other, from one bank to the fintech, from fintech to EMI to fintech. And so sort of multi-layered open information exchange. But even in the absence of that, this is important for institutions to speak with each other and for systems to speak with each other. Yeah. So that bit is an important bit to sort of conclude my presentation, is because I would like to summarize. So one bit is customer bit. We talked about the fact that the customers would need as minimum as information requirements or documentation requirements as possible relative to the customer risk that they pose to the institution. Then one of the challenges that usually they have is the time that is required to complete the application process and the way in which application is architecture or design in terms of whether it is confusing or difficult for them to interact with the app. Then essentially the kind of ease of use with respect to scanning or uploading documents. And last but not the least, I think this is extremely critical, is the element of human interface. So if there is a lack of support in the form of live chat or telephone during the process, no meaningful involvement of the contact center, then that actually can impair the experience of the customer during the digital onboarding process. So if you would see on the right-hand side, you will see critical implementation considerations. Some of these relate to data, technology, and the financial crime considerations that Riaz also talked about. So essentially, it's about the ability of the new technologies to co-work with existing technologies. It's about integration with third parties, including obviously the national databases and the way in which one could partner with the other institutions providing systems that would enable complementing services or products to the customers. So this is extremely important. And then compliance with the financial crime related regulatory requirements and industry practices. So essentially, all the typologies that are associated with financial crime. So money laundering, terrorism financing, sanctions, customer identity, geographical channel and product risk management, transaction limit management framework, and also impersonation fraud risk. So essentially like a whole framework and methodology around financial crime governance. And last but not the least, I would actually talk about data. So it's not just about arranging the big data, it's also about using the big data, leveraging it for the purposes of customer engagement. So making sure that the data is analyzed in a predictive and prescriptive manner to create personalized customer journeys. From a risk management and compliance perspective, you can apply a risk-based approach using the data. And obviously, one cannot, underemphasize, or can, it's probably going to be as much emphasis you would probably be willing to give to cybersecurity risk, because we are living in a data world. We're talking about a digital experience. We're talking about digital channels and talking about social media as well. So all those sorts of privacy issues or controls around mishandling or leakage, or the risk of mishandling or leakage of digital customer profiles, and all the other data attributes that we have of the customer, including transaction profiles. So this is an overall description of what I feel a digital journey should look like, what kind of key considerations institutions should aim at, and most importantly, some of the benefits that this digital onboarding could lead to the industry, and from the perspective of providing seamless experience to the customers. So thank you very much, Farooq, again, and Riaz again. With this, obviously, I feel that my time is over. So thank you so much for the time that you've assigned to me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate that how you basically manage your time and then were able to end your presentation on time. And it was a very nice and insightful presentation. In fact, like I was listening to it with personal interest. So now I will move on to our second speaker, who is Mohammed Khatib. He's Group Chairman and CEO of Path Solutions from Kuwait. Mr. Khatib is an established leader known for being results-driven, dynamic, and highly entrepreneurial. He has a diverse experience in building businesses, teams, and identifying and capitalizing on market opportunities for over 30 years in the USA, UK, and the Middle East. Currently, Mohammed also serves as a board member of the board of trustees of IRTI, an affiliate of the Islamic Development Banking Group. Also Mohammed is a regular speaker and has keynoted at many international conferences on the subject of IT trends in the global financial services industry, and is an active member of the Islamic finance community. So with that, I would like to invite Mr. Khatib for his presentation. Khatib, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to start by thanking Alif Technologies and the Central Bank of Pakistan for inviting me to be part of this event. And as we are talking about the same subject, I think you will notice that I have a lot of agreements with Brother Anwar and his presentation. I believe the whole world agrees on what needs to be done, but I think the disagreement is on the execution of how things needs to be done. I'm going to talk in my presentation about onboarding a financial institution, because Path Solutions, we work with a lot of banks. We work with over 150 Islamic banks around the world, from Malaysia all the way to South America. So we have a global view of what is happening in the world, in the banking sector. And also we are involved with a couple of fintechs. So we actually have the fintech view of the onboarding process. So I'll try to combine and look at it as a financial institutions versus just fintechs or banking. If you look at the onboarding, it's really part of the digital transformation that the world is going through. As you know, with the world fourth industrial revolution and Everybody's moving to digital. That started about, I would say, 12, 13 years ago with all these empowering technologies. Of course, the fintechs started in the financial sector, that revolution. And they actually went after certain services that the banks provide, and they tried to basically separate them and offer them as individual services, and they were very successful. Of course, with that success, the attention of the banking sector and the central bank, the regulators, they looked at how successful the fintechs are being and the amazing customer experience they are providing. So a digital transformation movement started to happen in the traditional banks, including, of course, the Islamic banks. And the regulator came in and saw how amazing this revolution can actually do to their economy and economies and financial sector as a whole. So they start forcing the banks to open up through open APIs. And so we have a lot of interaction and partnership going on between the fintechs and the banks. But if you look at where we are right now, we are in a transition period. So we really, if you look at the onboarding, you will see three types of onboarding. There's still a lot of banks doing the conventional on-site onboarding where you go and fill all those forms, versus others have moved to where you provide you electronically the forms, you can fill them, but then you have to do the trip to the bank to basically do the final signing and all that. And then you have the third type, which is the complete digital, where you actually, the technologies are provided and you can do the whole process remotely and through e-signature and ID verification and all that technologies that Brother Anwar talked about. You can actually do the whole process which is basically, as in the top of my slide, you can see all these stages that are needed to be done in the onboarding process. That is all actually can be done remotely with the digital onboarding. If you look at what's the onboarding challenges, I'm going to add a couple of things to Brother Anwar's slide and talk about the loss of revenue. It's amazing. In 2020 alone, the global commercial banking market lost $3.3 trillion due to abandoned application during onboarding. That's amazing. I told you about the transition we're going through the onboarding. So the banks are selling the customer that's so amazing and easy to do and all that. They come in, either they come in on the physical and try to start the application and they never come back with their documentation, or even remotely you start the process, it's so cumbersome and not user friendly, you basically terminate that process. $3.3 trillion just in 1 year. With the lost business to digital first competitors, of course, we call them like the neo banks and the fintechs. The traditional banks are seeing 78% of the banks having lost customers to new banks, which is new banks is the digital banks, the fully digital banks that has no physical presence. The third challenge is they are failing to meet customer expectations in the traditional way. Basically, according to many surveys, and I'm specifying here one survey, that during the pandemic, they found that 79% of the customers want more all digital processes. Of course, with the closures and the limited ability to the movement and the social distancing, you really do want to do things remotely. And actually, the most of the banks got caught off guard, not really ready with these services. And we have been working with a lot of our customers who just want to go digital, and we've been trying to race with time to be able to offer all these digital services to banks who did not have digital services. In addition, the fourth challenge is waste of time. And this is basically, it's wasting everybody's time. It's wasting the customers or potential customers' times, It's wasting the employees' time. It takes 26 days on the average for a financial institution to onboard a new customer. That's worldwide number. And then the fifth challenge, which is also what we call a friction. And the friction is the stuff that actually makes the process hard to move fast. On the average, financial institutions contacting retail clients 4 times during the onboarding process. This onboarding process that's supposed to be smooth and supposed to be one step, and everybody talks about a couple of hours. Some people talk about a couple of minutes. You actually, for the retail clients, they spend 4 times during the onboarding just calling the customer, following on the documentation. If the customer was a corporate, they actually calling the customer on the average 8 times during the process. Just you can imagine how much frustration that caused actually the customers. A couple of slides I wanted to show you from a study that made in England that compared, and I'm going to try to make a really good point here about clicks and the actual activation of account. But if we look at the number of clicks that it takes to open an account, and you can look in the top, and it's mostly dominated by the fintechs and the new banks. And then you go to the bottom and you see more of the traditional banks that you know, like HSBC and others. You can see we start at 24 clicks to open an account with Revolt and Starling Bank and Monzo, 38, 45 clicks, all the way to 120 clicks. Good, good. Now the problem is, let's take a look at, okay, I did the 24 clicks. How long does it take me to actually use the account or activate the account? If we look at the activation of the accounts, it's very surprisingly, Barclays jumped to number 1. So in 2 days after you fill, even if you did a lot more clicking, they actually activate your account the fastest. Versus you look at some of those Revolt, which was number 1 in clicking, very few clicks. It took them a day longer, which is 33% longer than Barclays and Monzo. Some traditional banks have really a problem. If you look at HSBC, it takes 36 days to activate an account. That's, to me, is amazing. 120 clicks, okay, I created and filled the application, but it takes me 36 days to actually use it. That's definitely a problem for the traditional banks. So if we look back on this onboarding process, we find there is 4 pillars for this onboarding process to be successful. Number 1 is compliance. You have to actually figure out compliance and make sure it doesn't make sense for you to have 3 clicks and create an account that is not compliant with regulation. You'll be closed the second day. The speed of the process. Clicking is great, less clicks, but I need to activate my account very fast and I want to be able to use it. The third pillar is user friendliness. It has to be, I myself experienced how frustrating some of these banks in their process, and the experience of the onboarding process was very cumbersome. And then you need the managerial dashboard for the banks to actually be able to manage this onboarding process, to see who is onboarding and the approval process. And all that needs very sophisticated dashboards on the bank side to manage the onboarding and make sure that it keeps moving with the approvals very smoothly. The most important things about those pillars is when you're talking about, okay, I want to do the onboarding and I want to do it on any smart device and I want to do it anytime, fantastic. It has to be secure. So basically that the security comes as number 1 priority, because you don't want to compromise the customer's data, and you want to balance that security with the user experience. And this is really a tough balance that a lot of system designers struggle with, because a secure system, that means you need to do a lot of checkings and a lot of work, versus when you are looking at the speed and the user experience, you want less of that. So how you balance both of them and come up with a workable solution that satisfies the customer and meets and meet their expectation is a big challenge in designing the system. When you try to move to a digital onboarding, Brother Anwar talked about multiple things that you have to do. I try to summarize what I think from our internal experience at Path Solutions. Where did we focus in designing our digital onboarding system? First of all, you have to actually do an amazing segmentation, and I call it the segmentation of one, which means that you have to have so much big data, you have to have so much intelligence that allow you to know really your customer, not anymore by large segments. Or they are teenagers, or they are young professionals, or they are seniors. No, that's not good enough, because in each segment, there are so many specific attributes to each individual. So you need to understand the behavior. And there is a huge science behind that. It's called the behavior science that everybody right now is looking at in the technology and trying to tie the behavior science with the technology. So you really understand the consumer and the customer and your potential, and design and target the onboarding process and design it targeted to that customer. And it has to be delivered through omni-channel. So basically you cannot anymore just do it through a computer or a desktop or a laptop. You have to provide it through any smart device anywhere. You have to be always on the top of your compliance and regulatories. And we're talking about here the EKYC, the AML screening. Those are regulations that central banks basically focus on, and the banks and the fintechs have to adhere to these regulations. And by the way, on the onboarding, a lot of companies now, especially in the West, they use electronic services that do EKYC and the verification of identity, that they do AML screening. And the traditional way of doing it is you have a system inside the bank that does all this for you, and you have all this information. But now you have access to big data, and you have access to tremendous amount of information that you can actually do those verifications. And there are some really good companies worldwide that offer services on the cloud that you can actually connect through open APIs that we talked about and get those services. You have to shape your customer's journey. Everything that is in the system has to be based on customer journeys. You have to draw your customer journey like a director draws the story of a movie, and you basically decide what are the steps the customer has to go through in this condition and this condition, etc., and make that journey very, very pleasant. And then you need to collect, measure, and test. You collect the data, you measure the effectiveness of your solutions, and you test it over and over. And this is, by the way, a continuous process. That's where technologies like artificial intelligence, big data, and all that comes to play, because you're not just putting a system and you're done. You need to continuously collect the data, analyze the data, test your system, the acceptance of it, collect information and survey the customer, and continuously enhancing the system. And some of this enhancement can be automated. When you have AI, it can actually self-improve the process. And then the final point here is you need to blend technology and a human experience. Brother Anwar talked about how important the human interaction is also important. So don't think about this as a technology solution completely. You really need to blend it with human experience and bring your bank brand through this experience, and don't rely 100% on technology and leave your customers stranded dealing with only technology. But they need a backup of a human experience. Let me take a couple of views here. As long as I'm a technologist, I would like to focus on a couple of technologies that I think they are extremely important in the onboarding. We have the artificial intelligence. A lot of people talk about a lot of things like pattern recognition, like machine learning. It's all under the umbrella of artificial intelligence, the intelligence of making the system self-learning, just trying to imitate how a human learns and try to improve just like how human learn. You have that, of course, through the onboarding process from understanding the data, collecting the data, verifying the data. Throughout the process, artificial intelligence can play a key role in this area. Then the AML and the your customer and all that. And you need to implement a very smart rule engine that actually provide the customer the different paths in the onboarding based on the intelligence. You have two systems in the onboarding that rely on the artificial intelligence. One is the omni-channel and how the fraud management and understanding the customer and customizing the process. All that can be done through the omni-channel and through which channel you are logging into. And then you have the intelligent AML, where you have the big data and you do the not only checking on names and checking on blacklists, but actually checking on profiles and try to create a character, an avatar for this person on the system, and try to understand how is the matching and the verification is happening. The second technology I want to talk about is blockchain. I think in the onboarding, it's an amazing technology that a lot of, you hear a lot about it through listening to the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency, but the blockchain technology is amazing also for sharing documents, for verification. So you actually can, through blockchain technology, create a digital identity and share that digital identity with different, that's the customer, sharing that digital identity to the different financial institutions through the onboarding and through the use of services. I think that we are not there yet, but in 2 to 3 years, this is going to be huge. And I think most of the financial institutions will be using blockchain for verification of documentation and accessing digital identity. Blockchain is a secure internet. It's everything that you hate about the internet because of lack of security. Blockchain offers you that secure internet, that you know who's sending you this, and you know that this information is verified by the owner. Finally, basically all this onboarding, we're just focusing on the onboarding process, but it is part of the fourth industrial revolution in the banking and the financial services. And to do that move, you have to basically have the infrastructure, the digital culture, the support of the regulatory system, the human capital. That this is the infrastructure on the right-hand side that you need to create to actually have the digital environment. And then you need the system on the left, omni-channel banking, modular banking, open banking through open API, etc., smart banking, social media banking, and banking on the blockchain platform. All this will be systems on the top of that infrastructure on the right-hand side. With that, I think it's very, very exciting times for the financial institution as a whole. And I believe fintechs, banks, who I believe the only way they're going to proceed and move forward is to partner and work with each other to provide customers with great experiences. And it all starts with an amazing onboarding process that is have an amazing customer satisfaction and customer experience. That's all what I have for you today, and I look forward for our Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Khatib, for a wonderful presentation. It was crisp and spot on. And you have actually talked about blockchain and the use of blockchain in the digital identity and digital onboarding. And just like you, I am also a believer of that this technology is going to revolutionize how we are thinking about onboarding processes and sharing data. And I think that Shiv is basically in a very good position to shed light on it. And it's no longer a future, it's already there. So I would like to basically now invite Shiv Agarwal. He is the CEO of My Earth ID from UK. He's a technology entrepreneur with a focus on improving human lives through the power of technology. He is currently leading Earth ID towards building a decentralized identity management platform using blockchain with a vision of providing a universal ID to all human beings. His mission is to address the challenges around data ownership, data security, and data monetization. He is also the Europe lead and UK chapter president of Government Blockchain Association, a global non-profit organization with over 100 chapters across the world, helping governments understand and adopt blockchain technology. He has more than 15 years of technology industry experience, having worked with global brands like Bank of America, Cathay Pacific, the Hartford, Lloyds of London, Unilever, and more. He has been providing technical consulting, design thinking, and thought leadership to his clients and stakeholders, and has been instrumental to the success of many strategic and digital transformation projects. With that, I would like to invite Shiv to speak and present what he has. Over to you,
Thank you,
Shiv.
Tarak, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Shiva Kirwal. Let me start with thanking the organizations for inviting me to this interesting discussion about digital onboarding. And I think my fellow presenters have already painted a strong picture with respect to the challenges that we have in this industry, right? And even with respect to my experience, having worked with the multinational brands, I think identity management is a $1 trillion problem, right? And I think we have realized that with respect to the amount of money that is being wasted with respect to frauds that happen, the amount of money that is being spent on digital onboarding and due diligence processes, and also with respect to the compliance, right? So this is where this is one industry, or this is one sector which is basically ripe for transformation. And this is where people like us have this responsibility to bring the innovative technologies and solutions to the table, so that the governments and different industry sectors are able to basically benefit from them. And one thing that I would also want to discuss about this is, like, right now we are also in the previous discussions, we are focusing on how individual banks can save money by digitally onboarding their customers and improving their experience, and then reducing the time to access to certain services, right? But one of the things that we should also think about is that as an individual, I am interacting with multiple banks, I'm interacting with multiple fintech organizations, be it insurance, be it financial services, be it banking, and so many others, even lending organizations, right? So as an individual, I am already spending a lot of time or building relationships with a lot of different organizations to get those services. And when we talk about the onboarding process, we are doing the processes repetitively, right, from an individual standpoint. So even if I adopt the digital onboarding process, even then I have to go through those same steps with 20 or 30 different organizations to basically get that access. And this is where we should also start thinking about that, how can we further optimize this process from an individual standpoint, right? And this is where we can take this further and think about how an individual can basically become the focal point, and how can they basically create a digital identity which can be used across different sectors and across different services. And also it's also about then how do we create a framework wherein basically a trust is established between the individual and the service provider. And secondly, the compliance is also taken care of automatically, right? Because when we look at the new landscape with respect to the data protection guidelines, be it GDPR or so many others around the world, there's this mandate that, and this is coming to all the other regions as well, right? This would come to Pakistan, this would come to other countries as well, is basically how do you ensure privacy and consent, right, when a user is interacting with these services. And this is where basically we have to see that how can we take this mess away and create something which is more unique and which is more user friendly. So obviously I think we have already discussed this, right, that the existing processes are frustrating, and I'm not going to go in detail for this because I think my other fellow presenters have already discussed in detail what the current mess is, right, and how can it be improved using digital onboarding processes. But when we move forward, there are key questions that we should be asking ourselves, right? The first thing is basically the trust. How do we establish a trust between the owner of the information and the consumer of the information? And in this scenario, in this specific discussion, we are talking about a end customer who's sharing certain information with a fintech service provider. and the most of the time money that we are talking about with respect to the KYC process or the onboarding processes, they are there because there's a certain friction, because that comes from a lack of trust. And this is where we have to ensure that how can we establish that trust so that this information is shared in a secure and seamless way, and then the overall friction is massively reduced. The second thing is obviously the cost, which we have already discussed. It's trillions of dollars, and then the question is how can we reduce this cost while avoiding frauds and reducing onboarding friction. And the last thing is compliance, right? And we have to think about the regulatory compliance with respect to how we handle the customer information, how do we ensure sector-specific compliance, and also how do we still ensure that the user privacy is maintained, because that is one of the biggest challenges that most of the organizations are facing, because obviously we are adopting technology, but still the information is being taken from the user, and then that information can still be misused. One of the solutions that is now coming to the table, which is self-sovereign identity. And this is something basically which is next level. So obviously, when we talk about digital onboarding is something which is already being adopted or is already being used around the world, right? So digital onboarding is nothing new now, right? This is where we have an opportunity, where we have blank canvas, where we can basically look at something which is brand new, not necessarily brand new, but which is something which is cutting edge, and which can basically change the way basically an individual interacts with different services, right? And self-sovereign identity is basically about it's about empowering the user with data ownership, privacy, and consent. So it's about the user having one digital identity supported by different identities that they already have, right? So they have their national IDs, they have passports, driving licenses, they have university credentials, they have their financial information, so all those things. But it, as an umbrella, there's one identity which they completely control, and using that identity, they are able to access different services across fintech sector, across other sectors. But they are not creating multiple identities for every service that they are using. And I can give you an example, right? For example, I have 3 different bank accounts, and I have basically 3 different identities to basically work with those bank accounts. Similarly, I have insurance, I have loans, all those things. But then for every service, I have a different identity. So the question is, how can I optimize this experience further? And when we talk about self-sovereign identity, the key characteristics are basically that they should be minimalistic, right? In the sense, like, I should be able to decide what I want to share for a specific interaction. For example, when I'm trying to open a bank account, I have to provide my address proof and my ID proof. But then in some cases, I end up sharing a lot more information that is required. So what self-sovereign identity does is that it allows the control with respect to what information is required for a specific use case, and only that information is shared. Second thing is basically it's portable, in the sense like it's technology independent. You don't have to worry about whether I'm using Microsoft, whether I'm using Android or whatever, right? So it's technology agnostic. And then the key aspect is about the control and the consent. So user completely controls this identity, and they are able to provide consent with respect to they are sharing this information with a specific individual. And lastly, security. So it basically promotes confidentiality, it promotes privacy. So this is something which is a concept that is now being I would say piloted by large organizations around the world with respect to how can they provide a better experience to their users, making them the focal point. And obviously, I think when we talk about the challenges, right, with respect to how can we provide a better user experience, how can we reduce the cost, how can we reduce the friction, and then how can we still ensure compliance. So the secret formula is basically this. So you take the concepts of self-sovereign identity, you also bring distributed ledger technology to the table, and then when you put them together, we get the concept of decentralized identity. I would explain that in detail in my next slides. So let's talk about what is blockchain. And I think most of the people would now understand what is blockchain, right? But still, as a concept, blockchain is about a distributed ledger, right? It's about decentralization of data storage and decentralization of administration, in the sense that as of today, a lot of organizations have their central repositories where the data is being stored, and then they have complete control with respect to the administration of that data. And that kind of brings a lot of issues with respect to trust, with respect to compliance. And this is where distributed ledger technology can take it further. and help us solve that challenge. And it's also about the way the data is stored, right? Because obviously it's distributed across the nodes around the network. It provides decentralization of control in terms of everybody looking at the same copy of data. And this is where the challenges with respect to data reconciliation goes away. Obviously, it's immutable in the sense like nobody can tamper with that data, because we have seen that there have been instances where large banks have been able to do frauds by basically manipulating the data of different customers, opening fake accounts and all those things, right? So blockchain can provide a potential solution with respect to those challenges. And obviously, I think it's a technology at the end of the day. A technology is an enabler, and blockchain as a technology for fintech sector is very, very promising. And when we look at some of the benefits, right, obviously it brings efficiency to the table, because a lot of processes that we currently do in fintech sector and other sectors, they are very inefficient, they are very manual. But with blockchain technology, a lot of efficiency is brought to the table, because now you are not worried about putting additional checks and balances with respect to the data reconciliation. Obviously, there's a transparency because it's a shared ledger. Obviously, there's a trust because obviously you are able to look, you are not trusting your partners, you're not trusting other organizations or the customers, you are trusting the technology. And obviously it's resilient, right? Because it's not one server, it's not one database, so it's very resilient. So obviously when the solution is hosted on blockchain technology, then it's very, very resilient. Now, when you put together these concepts, so we have the concept of decentralized identity, and decentralized identity looks at the concept of identity management from a different lens. Because when we talk about any digital identity, there are three stakeholders. One is the issuer, who's basically issuing that identity to an individual. So it could be it could be a government organization, for example, who's issuing the national ID, right? Or it could be a passport authority, or it could be a financial organization, it could be an insurance company, it could be a university. So they are issuing certain credentials to an individual, which are owned by that specific individual, right? And that this individual is going to use those credentials in certain different use cases. For example, when I'm opening a bank account, I'm providing an address proof and ID proof, right? And those are my credentials, which have been issued to me by a certain organization. And then there's this concept of verifier, which is basically the service provider, right? Or the requester of the information. So the question is basically how do this requester gets access to the information that they need, and then how do they validate, right? Because currently what happens is, like, I have a passport, I take it to the bank and I share it with them, and then they have to verify it, right? Now for verification, they have to rely on third parties. And obviously, even when you have third parties to do that verification, it's not cost and time efficient. And also still a lot of frauds happen, because I can create fake identities. In US, there are most 50% of the driving licenses are fake. So how do you handle those scenarios where the information that the individual is providing to the organization, let's say a bank, is kind of spoofed, and then there's no way for these organizations to find that fraud in a time-sensitive fashion. So this is where decentralized identity brings the three stakeholders together and connect them through a blockchain solution. And what happens is, like, the issuer, from the beginning, these identities are issued as digital credentials. So rather than giving physical copies, instead of having my passport, my driving license, or even my university credentials as paper-based, they can be digital credentials. And the benefit is that digital credentials carry that trust, right? Because they have that signature with respect to who's the issuer, when this particular identity was issued, and whether it's still valid or not, right? Because there are certain use cases where, and even in banking industry, where I, as an individual, I shared my driving license for a particular process, onboarding process, and my driving license was revoked, but there's no way for a certain organization to figure out whether this license is still valid or not. So this is where what happens is, like, when the issuer is issuing this digital credential, they are also writing a proof of credential on the blockchain ledger, right, which is a public blockchain. And what happens is, like, when the person is sharing this information with a service provider or verifier, they are able to verify very quickly that this credential is still valid and still trustworthy. And one of the benefits of this overall architecture is that the individual is basically using an identity wallet, right? When I say identity wallet, it's a private space where he or she is carrying all their identity documents. I think some of you would be aware of this this concept of DigiLocker, which is being used in India. It's not similar concept, but it kind of promotes the concept of that I can carry all my different sorts of identities in my mobile phone, and I can take it to a bank, I can take it to a police officer, I can take it to an insurance company, or I can take it to a university, right? So it's like creating a mobile wallet for identities. So in this model, the wallet could be on your phone, the wallet could be in the cloud, but it's a private space with in the sense that your data is sitting in your wallet, my data is sitting in my wallet. And this is where the threat surface, because one of the challenges that we don't consider is when the data breaches happen, right? When the hacks happen, then the data of all the customers of an organization are put to risk. But with this model, the threat surface is reduced massively, because now you are storing data in individual private wallets. And when we look at how this model works, so this is basically a kind of a live example how this model would work. And this model works from two perspectives. One is that obviously we already have physical identities which we carry with ourselves, right? And we are still using them with banks and other organizations because it's mandated by the regulation and by the government, right? The bank has to accept a passport, accept a driving license. So this is where what an individual can do is like they create their digital wallet, and what they're able to do is like they're able to digitize their existing credentials. So they can scan their passport, their driving license, or national identities into this wallet. And this wallet, what it does is like whatever we discussed previously with respect to the digital onboarding process, where the document is scanned, the information is read, the identity verification happens, the liveness check happens, and that information is shared with the bank. But in this process, all those steps happen to ensure that the document that is being scanned is valid, authentic, not tampered with, and owned by the same individual. And all those checks and balances happen, and that document gets added to the user's identity wallet. And then a proof of that document is basically written to the public ledger. Now what happens is like what I've managed to do is like I managed to digitize all my identities, and the KYC process sort of happens in one go. Now I'm not and this is where the concept of open banking kind of aligns with this, wherein one organization does the KYC and then all the other banks are able to share the same information. This is exactly a similar model where the KYC happen once and the information is basically put into the wallet, and from there it can be shared with the requesting parties. And the second model is basically where you have onboarded the issuers onto this platform, and then they directly share these credentials to the user wallet. And what they do is like they are issuing digital credentials, and they are also writing a proof of these digital or verifiable credentials onto the ledger. And now the power this user has is that he can share this information with requesters in different permutations and combinations. So I can share either the complete documents, or I can share basically certain attributes about myself, or I can just prove certain things about myself with respect to my residency, my nationality, my age, my gender, and so many other things, right? In a very privacy and consent oriented manner. And what the organizations are able to do is like, first of all, they're able to receive the information digitally, and then they are also able to verify the authenticity and validity of these documents directly from the ledger. So now you don't need third parties to kind of go and take the documentation and do the verification, right? So this happens in one go, and what it does is like it optimizes the end-to-end process. Because when we talk about digital onboarding, we are still talking about doing the processes 20, 30, 50, 100 different times. But with this model, the user, basically the wallet takes care of that, and then the information that is being shared from the wallet is already pre-verified. And that is where the organizations have this trust that the information that they are receiving is trustworthy, it's foolproof, and then they can basically onboard customers very, very quickly. And this is the model that is being now piloted by different big organizations like MasterCard and other similar big banks around different fintech hubs. And this is where I feel that we have the opportunity that while we have a blank canvas with respect to doing the digital transformation for the fintech industry in Pakistan and in other regions, we can actually look at more innovative technologies, and we can basically become the leaders rather than the followers of this technology adoption. And lastly,
sorry to interrupt. Yeah, can you please conclude the presentation? Thank you so much.
Okay, fine, sure. Okay. And lastly, just very quickly about Earth-ID. So Earth-ID is a decentralized identity management platform that allows secure and frictionless exchange and verification of identity information. And basically it provides a wallet which can be used by users to digitally share their information with different organizations. And on that note, I would basically conclude my presentation.
Thank you so much, Chief. Wonderful presentation. I would just move to my last presenter very quickly due to the time constraint we have, because we have a couple of questions also. So I would like to basically take them in the last session, and I encourage people to basically type their question and also mention that to whom their question is posed to. So that like in the panel discussion or the Q&A session, we can basically pick them up. So our last presenter, I would like to invite Mr. Akhtar Javed, who is Director of BRPD, State Bank of Pakistan from Pakistan. Mr. Muhammad Akhtar Javed, he is actually Director of Banking Policy and Regulations Department, and is a seasoned central banker associated with the SBP since 1996, where he has managed diversified banking areas such as policy, supervision, and inspection. Currently, amongst other major initiatives, he is spearheading digitization of banking in Pakistan through development of regulatory framework for digital banks and SBP's initiatives of digital onboarding, while also making banking a safe and secure channel for financial services. He has also played a pivotal role in strengthening AML CFT regime for Pakistan's financial institutions, and has paved the way for policies in the areas related to cloud services and enterprise technology governance and risk management. So without further ado, I would like to basically invite Mr. Akhtar Javed. Mr. Akhtar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction, and I would like to thank NIBAF and Aleph Technology for hosting this wonderful event. And welcome to all, and good evening to all participants. So I think my fellow presenter, they have already given a good overview of the digital onboarding. What are the challenges? What are the options available? And nobody can deny the benefits of the digital onboarding. I think this is a reality now, and everybody is moving towards digital onboarding, or all regulator, all financial institutions. So this is a cost-effective and efficient solution for the onboarding. So most of the part, I think, have already been covered, and they have explained what are the options, the benefits, and obviously the challenges as well. So I will try to focus on the challenges which are specific to the Pakistan or to the Central Bank of the Pakistan. And we are facing certain unique issues. I would like to highlight those issues first. So as a regulator, I would like to mention that we are just looking at the digital onboarding as a simply replacement of the face-to-face interaction. Currently, the regulator has been emphasized over face-to-face interaction with the financial institution, to safeguard that the individual who is opening account cannot replace or mask identity of any other person. But that was the only risk, and all the regulation of the FATF and other standard setting body are focused on that. That because know your customer is the key for the onboarding. So when we talk about the digital onboarding, it means we are just eliminating the face-to-face interaction. So as a regulator, the key risk come when we eliminate the face-to-face interaction. So as a regulator, it's really our duty to ensure that the person who is opening an account is genuine, and he is not using the identity of any other person. So that is the first challenge and the foremost for every regulator. The second one is obviously for the customer perspective. The customer is providing personal information and uploading the document digitally instead of going into branch. So the document and the information being shared by the customer with the institution through either directly or through third party is secure and safe, and it cannot be defrauded. So that are the two primary challenge for the regulators to ensure the genuineness of identity of the customer, and the second one is safety and security of the information being provided by the customer to the banks. So these are the two new things for the regulator. All other things are almost the same, but I will not talk about the technology, what are the options available, and what are the different ways for digital onboarding. So I would focus on these two areas. And I will also share some perspective of what is the State Bank right now doing on the digital onboarding, where we right now are standing, and what are the way forward for us, and what kind of challenges right now we are facing overall with regard to the digital onboarding and normal onboarding. So Pakistan is a country.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you please make your screen full, the presentation full in full mode, because it looks very small.
Okay, let me. So I have to stop first, and I will have to share it. Just a few.
No problem.
Yes, sir.
And no, actually, we can see also the next slide. If you can basically make it full mode presentation.
I've already made it full mode, but I think I have used it.
It's okay, no problem. You can go ahead.
Okay, no problem. Please carry on.
Please carry on.
Is this better now?
Perfect. Yes, now it looks better. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I think we are facing a dual challenge. One on the one side, we want to enhance the financial inclusion, and at the same time, you would be aware that we are facing challenges from the FATF and APG. So Pakistan is I think among the few countries which are facing this dual challenge. So we want to enhance our financial inclusion, but at the same time, we have to fulfill the requirement of FATF. You would be aware that we are under the right now and under the watch list of the FATF since 2018, and at the same time, we are being evaluated by the Asia Pacific Group. This is quite a unique situation. I would like to highlight that no other country in the world are facing this situation. Generally, as per the FATF practices, if country is already under the watch list of the FATF, and if it comes for the mutual evaluation for the regional evaluation, so generally they stop the first process of FATF, and then they allow the country to prepare and spare resources to prepare for the evaluation. But unfortunately, Pakistan is right now facing the dual challenge. At the same time, we are complying the FATF action plan, and on the other hand, we are also pursuing the mutual evaluation finding and report of the Asian Pacific Group. On the other hand, we are facing a real challenge of financial inclusion. We are among the countries which have very low penetration and very low penetration as well as the footprint geographically in the country. So our account proportionate to the population is very low. It's just 21% as per the World Bank information related to 2007. So on as a regulator, it's very difficult for us at the same time to meet the requirement of the FATF and enhancing the financial inclusion. On the other issue which we are right now facing is cash is still king in Pakistan. So I would like to share some few slides that what is the ratio of the currency in circulation in Pakistan. So as a regulator, it's difficult for us. We are the cash-based economy. We prefer, the general public prefer dealing in cash. So under those circumstances, it's really challenging and difficult for a regulator to convince and motivate the public to go on digital. So these are the customer confidence and awareness is, I think, already been covered under the earlier presentation. So I explained you that we are currently under the FATF action plan, and with regard to the financial sector, we have completed the action which are required from the regulators. Alhamdulillah. So no action is required right now from the banking sector. So we are fully compliant on the factor of action plan with regard to the financial sector. But as a country, there are certain points which are still under process, and around out of 27, 6 points are still under different stages of the completion. On the other hand, we are pulling all our resources to meet the requirement that the mutual evaluation, which is carrying on from the 2008 onwards. So this is as a regulator, so we cannot focus on only one area. So we have to focus largely on the compliance and secondary on the financial inclusion. So this is a very difficult dilemma for us. This is the figure which I want to highlight, that the currency in circulation in Pakistan is gradually increasing, and right now it's 40%. I think if it is not one of the highest, but it's among the highest in the world. But that shows that the preference of people to dealing in the cash. Under these difficult circumstances, motivating people to onboard digitally is really difficult. So that is the attitude and behavior of the customer. They prefer to deal in cash instead of going digitally. These, I think, identity theft, customer digital literacy, these are the common challenges which have already been covered by the earlier presenters. So I will not focus on these areas. I think these are fairly been covered. So what the State Bank has been doing to promote the digital onboarding and onboarding to meet our objective of financial inclusion. So in 2008, State Bank introduced a new kind of banking, which is called agent banking. We generally refer as the branchless banking. So State Bank issued specific regulation for the branchless banking, allowed the banks to hire agents to enhance the penetration countrywide. And right now we have 16,000 branches, but on the other hand, we have more than 400,000 agents countrywide. So that has paid very well, and we have increased reasonable penetration countrywide. So as per the regulations, the banks are allowed to give a limited mandate to the agent for providing financial services or banking services to the customers, especially under the underserved area. So we have also issued a comprehensive framework for the agent banking. Obviously, we are put as a regulator, we are custodian of the public money. So we have issued a supervisory and regulatory framework for agent, how the agent will be hired, engaged, and how it will be monitored. And then in order to enhance the financial inclusion, we have introduced the Asan account. So though all these arrangements were a regular onboarding, it was not a digital onboarding, but we have tried to make it simplified for the customer to make it convenient to open a bank account in Pakistan. But all these measures were the traditional or conventional onboarding by going into the branch or agent and opening an account. And recently we have introduced the Roshan Digital Account. This is complete. I think one of the hosts have already shared his experience. Roshan Digital Account is, I think, the totally different experience, and that is the first time in the history of Pakistan that we have introduced an end-to-end digital experience for the customer, and especially for the customer sitting outside of Pakistan. So this is doing very well, and we are getting feedback, and everybody, right from the highest level, we are monitoring the progress on the digital account. And this is the first and I think the most interesting experience for Pakistan, and we are using it a pilot to just build the further digital onboarding framework on this experience. And the regular account, obviously, these are the regular account required as per the routine KYC and AML requirements. At the same time, we have issued a comprehensive technology framework which covers the key risks, and it have identified the role and the responsibility to be required at the bank level, different layer of the bank. But this is some sort of progress. I have already mentioned that when we introduced branchless banking in 2008, and since then it's doing fine. And this experience has enhanced the financial inclusion country. And if we compare with the traditional conventional bank, the number of accounts have almost close to the traditional account, which have opened over 70 years. So just in in 10, 12 years, so we are reaching to the same levels. So that has paid very, very well. And this is the below table just give you an indication of the footprint countrywide we have through conventional branches and through agent and through ATM and the digital options for the customers. These are the traditional risks we have already covered. I think other presenters have given a detailed overview of the money laundering terrorist risk. I think when we board digitally, so there is the possibility of misuse of identity. So that is the key risk for the regulator. So we have to build in some sort of control and risk mitigation to ensure that the identity of the customer cannot be misused. Or at the same time, cybersecurity is a key because we are using onboarding digitally. So the sharing of information by the customer with the financial institution from its workplace or through application, through mobile or through internet. So it's the responsibility of the regulator to have a proper, effective framework to ensure that information being shared with the bank is fully secured and cannot be misutilized. And obviously, depending on the technology, they obviously have a risk of business continuity. If such services or applications or technologies are not available to customers, so it's really difficult and challenging for the regulator to ensure the availability of those services. So business continuity risk is obviously a part of the digital onboarding. And we have already talked about data privacy. The other presenter have given complete detail. And there is a lot of involvement of outsource and third party in this, and the whole process of digital. No bank is in a position to provide end-to-end digital solution. So they have to engage third party, or either they have to outsource. So FATF standards allow the third party outsourcing and use of the third party for the digital onboarding and for the KYC. But obviously, third party, when we add a third party or other than the bank, so there is a possibility we can also adding some risk as well. So the way forward is, because as I already mentioned, that we are currently facing challenge of FATF action plan. At the same time, we are also complying the mutual evaluation assessment. So that would remain our focus. We have to maintain the compliance level to satisfy the international standard setting bodies. So that would remain key, and our key resources are remain focused on those areas. But at the same time, we are working to promote the digital onboarding. So as I already mentioned, that all the three speakers have highlighted the importance and significance and the benefits of the digital onboarding. So we are working on digital onboarding, and right now, as I already mentioned, that we have already rolled out the non-resident and RDA, the Russian digital account for the non-resident Pakistani, that is working successfully. And we have learned a lot of things through this experience over the period. And we are also working for a regulatory framework for the resident Pakistani as well. And we are using a sort of a sandbox. We will not exactly call it a sandbox, but we are using a conscious approach. So we are allowing banks who are interested to have digital experience, so they can approach State Bank of Pakistan. So we review their request and their controls, and then we allow them to experience this digital onboarding for a limited period, and we call it a pilot launch for a limited time period. So we have allowed a number of banks to roll out the pilot for digital onboarding. And finally, we are at the final stage for rolling out complete end-to-end digital onboarding framework for the domestic customer as well. So this is the regulatory development from our side. So we are fully agree that this is the future, and regulators should support and encourage digital onboarding. But at the same time, we also protect the customer's information, customer identity, and secure the information being shared with the banks, either directly or through third parties. So being a regulator, I think the first challenge is to ensure the identity of the customers, which we are ensuring. And I think the other presenter have given a fair view that how the identity of the customer can be ensured. There are a lot of controls available through technology, and which are more secure and efficient. At the same time, the second challenge and second objective of regulator is to ensure the customer information and protect the customer's data and privacy. So these are the two challenges which I think the right now regulator are being faced, and we are trying to cover all these area in our regulatory framework. So this is the, I think, way forward for everybody, and everybody. The all regulators are already, I think, most of the regulators in the world have already rolled out the digital onboarding, and we are among those, and we will definitely provide a digital solution very soon in the second quarter of this year. So that's it from my side. And I would like to thank the organizer again for giving this opportunity to sharing my thought with you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akhtar Javed. It was a wonderful presentation, and like we really wanted to listen to the regulatory perspective and how regulators are thinking, and also because it is really, really important that how compliance issues are being tackled, and also how regulatory requirements are being ensured that they are fulfilled. So I think that it is really important to listen to your presentation also, that and happy to also learn that how much development and how fast-paced updates are being implemented in Pakistan. And also it may be a very good example for other developing countries to see that, like how we can basically leverage on the developments in the digitalization and digitization also for them. So I think that I really thank also the speakers for utilizing the time by typing the answers for several questions. But we do have few questions, and I think
just Dr. Farooq, can I have a liberty to say some things? Just add on.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have gone through all the presentation, and especially the last presentation with Mr. Javed have given that one. The biggest hindrance what he have identified is that in Pakistan is our economy is that cash-based economy. We look at the example, if you take the example of Dubai, especially like 8 or 10 years back also, Dubai, the major transactions was going on like same, which is going in Pakistan. The Pakistan is a bigger economy. We understand that one, and the population, but it was based on cash basis too much. Now they have transformed these their systems. They have implemented that one. I foresee two major things to go to move forward to a digital economy. It was the regulations, like regulations are in place that in European Union, and that AML5 is there. Most probably the 5 AMLD they are adopted to help out smooth transactions for the digital onboarding. And second thing is the ecosystem. Foremost things, the ecosystem today, we have Emirates ID over here, and we have UAE Pass also, in which you control your ID and you use the ID for logging into different government departments. And the major part in the banks, everybody knows that 20 to 30% cost of banks expenses are on KYC. Here, the KYC, as per the Central Bank of UAE, have dropped by around 40% when they have introduced these systems, that UAE Pass and everything like that. So it's just, it's not a rocket science. Just we have to see that which system suits our country, that which is more closest to that one. And this system, the ecosystem, unless the ecosystem is not developed, like Shiv Agarwal have identified that the blockchain and Emirates, this ID and these things will not run unless and until the ecosystem is properly working. They started building these organizations and transforming, and Dr. Kassar knows better than me. They are here since 42 years. They are operating that. In major work was going on cash basis. Oh, thank you very much for the time given.
Thank you very much for the feedback, and we fully understand that we are already doing this the ecosystem. And I think the primary objective of this presentation was to focus on the digital onboarding. So this is why I have not shared the other initiative being taken to build the ecosystem. So we are very keen, and we are practically doing a lot of things to implement this ecosystem. Now, obviously, this is a solution for
My comment for Javed Saab is I must commend State Bank of Pakistan. At least they take the initiative and take the lead towards the digitalization. And we all are very happy about it. And I'm sure, as Mr. Asif Zaman said, Dubai was cash-based. And of course, Pakistan is cash-based. Any property you buy, you have to pay the cash. But inshallah, with this digitalization and the strength of the customers and everyone identification, how much is the worth? Because today, if you want a worth of any person in Pakistan, you won't get it. But here you can get it. So inshallah, matter of another 3-4 years, Pakistan will be again flying high. I again thank everyone, and the speaker was super. I really appreciate Sayyid Faraz Saab, Muhammad Khatib, extraordinary way he showed that this Mishif Agrawal. And the thing is how to stop the hackers. That's the key thing. How to stop the hackers, that is the success. And I know hackers always winning. So hopefully you all are there and to fight with the hackers, and sure one day we everything in control. Thank you very much for arranging, Mr. Especially Farooq Habib for moderating so nice, and Asif Zaman continue doing such event every time. Blockchain is sure is a super thing coming up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions, and I really would like to have some feedback from our respected participants. Akhtar Javed Saab, I think this question is specific to Pakistan. I would like you to answer this, and also Riaz Chunara, because he has been also mentioned in the question. So the question is actually whether the financial inclusion can be boosted by digital onboarding in Pakistan. Please also comment on the probability of opening fake accounts in case of digital onboarding. I mean, how much is the probability, and how can you basically curb down this probability in Pakistan or in any developing countries?
Good question.
This is $1 million question, and I think everybody is talking about this, and the other three speakers have, I think, given the solution. So everybody has a given solution that how this fake identity can be eliminated, and the possibility of the opening account by the third party on behalf of other one. So this is a real challenge I highlighted. That is the only change, I think, which we have observed on digital onboarding. And there is solution. Not technology has provided a solution for us, and I think the Shiv has given a very good solution that how this the fake identity can be eliminated. And I think it's equally secure as compared to the face-to-face. So we are right now working on this, and we have in the RDA we have given a proper perspective and proper security feature while opening an account. Obviously, the first part is the sharing the identity document, and then it's the verification. So that verification part is very, very important. And then we have to ensure that the person who is sending the information or sharing the document is the same person. So either we can add the video KYC or the video interview and the live selfie and things like that. But end of the day, it's the verification process. So all the document and the identity provided by that particular customer have to be verified. In our case, we verified it from the other at our backend.
Okay.
This
so
is a real challenge, and there is
and
that would remain. I think that this risk cannot be eliminated completely, but we have to minimize this risk.
So Riaz Chunara Saab, I think that you can answer the first part of the question was about do you think that financial inclusion can be boosted in Pakistan given the usage of digital onboarding?
That's right. If you look at the empirical study in other areas, other jurisdictions, that is practically what has happened. Digitalization has actually boosted the financial inclusion. Especially if you look at the state bank initiatives right now with RAS, the payment systems. As Akhtar Saab said, and the cash is king here. So why are we using cash? That's the same thing. And the thing is that our population is actually mainly lower income or poor people. So if we give solution to them, if they can bank it through digital means, and it is very cost effective if we convert the payment systems with the micro payment gateway, RAS basically once it's extended fully, then obviously the cost of interoperability and cost to operate will go down. And this is what has happened in a lot of countries, where even small payments, like I'll just give you an example that I was in Kenya for a long time back. Over there, actually, M-Pesa, if you look into it, if you go, they call it Boga market. Boga market is a vegetable market. So even the payment at the vegetable market is made through M-Pesa. So, they have got that faith and confidence in that system. So I think, this can be done. And obviously, when you start doing this, the financial inclusion will go up. The 21% is very low. If everybody feels that instead of having cash, you can actually do transactions like these, it will be much more better. Obviously, the element of taxation, the white economy, these things have to be taken care in various ways. And secondly, the Akhtar Saab has responded, but I'll tell you one thing: hackers are always hackers and fraudsters are always there, but there are always ways in which you can protect yourself. And the technology actually gives a lot of countries are using various ways to protect. So this will keep on going on. So I feel that financial inclusion, this one of the step is actually digital payments that is going to improve a lot. And once the small payments are actually without much charges, can be paid either in pesas or zero charge, then automatically things are going to change rapidly and completely in Pakistan as well. Thank you.
Very true.
Okay, perfect. I have one question for Mr. Khatib and Faraz as well. So according to the Cisco Consumer Privacy Survey 2019, although like it's a little bit old, but I think that the survey's results are still relevant. So 84% of the respondents indicated that they care about privacy, and nearly half of them said that they have left companies because of their data policies. Moreover, if you look at the European law, like GDPR, also indicates that too much information can be a liability. Trying to collect too much data from a customer is a surefire way of to lose them. So what is your take on that? Okay, how these challenges are being tackled according to your experiences? For example, like GDPR is one aspect, and then people are becoming aware of their data privacy, and they are becoming more conservative and more secretive. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It is their data. They can do that. But what is your take on that? How it is impacting the digital onboarding solutions? So I would start with the Khatib first, and then I will go to Faraz.
Thank you for that. Really great question, and it's so relevant. It's not really an old question. I believe the whole world is struggling with this question. As any new technology comes in, and the fourth industrial revolution technologies, the 15, 16 technologies that came, and they call them the fourth industrial revolution technologies, or some people call it Industry 4.0. Actually, they pushed all the borders and exposed the issue of privacy in a tremendous light. And for example, the cloud. Most of the companies are moving to the cloud, and they're putting a lot of confidential information about their customers and about everybody on the cloud. And these clouds are owned by different entities. So the movement and the thrust to move toward the cloud is huge. But as you can probably know, countries like Germany said, hold on a second, let's stop. What we really need is we need a cloud in the country. For any information about any German, if you want to put it on the cloud has to be in the country. And you can see a lot of countries are moving the other direction. And I know we have some regulators on this session. A lot of governments, especially central banks, do not allow financial information about their customers to go out of the country. But then on the other hand, you have all this movement to the cloud, where basically the biggest three cloud operators are, the Amazon, the Microsoft, and Google, Oracle, etc. So how do you do that? You find that those operators are moving to the countries and creating clouds in the country. I still think the whole world will continue to struggle with the privacy issues. You saw what happened with Facebook and with the election in the US and all these other it's very, very sensitive issue. I believe nobody has the answers about it, but it's one of the most important issues that we as humans have to struggle with. Somebody mentioned, I think it's brother Shiv, he mentioned that 50% of the US driver license were actually fake. It's not really because of lack of technology in the US that they can actually fix this. It's because of regulation. Regulations in the US has always been protecting the privacy. And you cannot find, except the passport in the US, you cannot really find a lot of IDs that are federal IDs across the whole United States. They are state laws. So I believe there is a lot of, now Europe is waking up and putting all those regulations. Australia is doing a lot of regulations around the privacy and protection of data. I think this will continue and will accelerate in the next 3 to 5 years. I believe you will see a lot of these technologies kind of controlled because of these new regulations.
Okay, perfect. Faraz, would like to have your input on this, please. Can you please unmute yourself first?
Yeah, I would like to give you some local perspective as well, Farooq. There have been fundamental changes in the local regulatory landscape, local legal landscape with respect to data privacy and protection. I don't know whether you are aware of this or not, but there is a draft data protection bill, which has been in place in Pakistan for some time. We are hoping, obviously, maybe in the next couple of months, maybe 3 months or 4 months from now onwards, since obviously all the key stakeholders have given their feedback. So perhaps there is going to be clarity and direction as to where we would go with respect to managing customer consent or customer consent architecture. Having said that, obviously the basic premise of this regulation or law, it's a law, in fact, it's not a regulation of this law, is my money, my right, and my account, my right. So essentially this works on the principle of seeking consents. And in fact, this essentially is going to make life's difficult for people who are dealing in financial services industry, particularly dealing with banks and the kinds of entities regulated by the State Bank of Pakistan. But more about this is that the entire ecosystem is going to evolve around this, right? I mean, we talked about the ecosystem. Akhtar Saab has talked about that. Riyaz talked about that. So essentially, to put in place the cloud computing or the cloud frameworks or the cloud arrangements, to finalize the outsourcing arrangements in the light of this regulation, and most importantly, you need to think about how do we reform with respect to open banking or APIs, and try and connect the dots. Essentially, this law is going to be the pivotal point for all this ecosystem to evolve. In fact, there have been certain restrictions or restrictive conditions in the law which may not necessarily be helping with respect to outsourcing or with respect to cloud or the transfer of data from Pakistan to elsewhere. So essentially, not being put into place the international clouds and operate the clouds as Hatib has just described, the local clouds, right? So there have been a lot of discussions around that, and we are hoping that the required amendments are going to be made, because without that, it's going to be very difficult for a major reform to happen with respect to entities that would pursue digital banking or digital financial services models. So this is not just for State Bank of Pakistan, by the way. This is applicable for the entire, entire society or economy, right? So essentially, SACP, State Bank, government departments, many, many more. So essentially, it's like a framework which is applicable nationwide. So I just thought maybe I should share that development with you.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
No, perfect. So I might take a few more minutes from the participants as well. Sorry for closing it a little bit late. I have one question for Shiv. I think that it is a very interesting question. So it is somehow related to blockchain and crypto. So I must ask you. So there is a massive opportunity to move from digital customer onboarding to digital asset onboarding. So particularly relevant with growth in blockchain and cryptos. So would you like to share your thoughts about digital asset onboarding and custody although like it may sound like a off topic, but I think that it's relevant. So Shiv, please,
Yeah, sure,
if you have any
absolutely.
thought on it, please do share.
Right. No, absolutely. I think I would want to basically start with a slightly different note, because I think one of the key questions that comes to the table with respect to the different data protection guidelines, regulations, and laws, right, is basically with respect to the consent and the privacy and the ownership, right? And this is where a blockchain technology plays a significant role, right? Because now we have this opportunity where we can put the user or the customer at the focal point, right? And that is where all the services now revolve around the user. Right now it's more organization or service centric, but now the model is becoming more user centric. And with that thought also, it's also about how can this user or a consumer can participate into a lot of other uh, services or a lot of other sectors with respect to even assets, right? Because right now what happens is, like, most of the assets that we talk about, they are physical in nature, right? We can talk about land, we can talk about gold, we can talk about so many other investment vehicles which are mostly out of the reach of a normal human being, right? And I think one of the questions I think that came to table was with respect to the financial inclusion, right? How does a normal human being get access or get to participate in the digital economy? And this is where the digitization of assets plays a very important role, right? Because once you start using the blockchain technology to start digitizing these assets, what happens is, like, now the unit of economy changes, right? Now you're not talking about lakhs or crores or millions or billions. You can talk about a smaller numbers, smaller currency denominations, which can be used to basically participate or invest, right? And this is what the model is, right? Once I'm able to digitize these different assets from different classes, now a normal human being has access, right? And they have the means to become owners, and this basically kind of drives the shared economy. And this is what the world is moving towards, right? We are moving towards a shared economy model. We are moving towards a user centric model, and wherein basically the user is able to make the decisions with respect to their information, or even with respect to their assets, right? And I think that is what we need to also acknowledge and adopt.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Okay,
you. Great
perfect.
answer.
I think
Great answer.
I have one question, and I would take it as the concluding remarks or the final thoughts from all the speakers. I will go one by one, and I would give like 1 minute each to have your final thoughts on this. So I would start with Mr. Akhtar Javed, and there is a question actually. So like I think that he can start. He can share his thoughts on it. So like, do you think that because of this digital transformation and industrial revolution 4.0 and fintech are going to change the role of central bank in the future? I mean, it's not specifically about one central bank. I mean, we are talking about all the central banks. So do you think that it's going to change the role of central banks?
Definitely, I think it will change the role of central bank, because the thinking of the fintech is not matched with our thinking. So we have to change our mind. So we are old mind people. So the fintech, I think that they are revolutionary and they need very speedy and very innovative solutions. So central bank have to change and think like the fintech, and we have to accommodate. So currently, I think I would like to share that the State Bank is also doing a lot of work to accommodate the fintech in our regulatory frameworks. So our payment system department, which is different from ours, so I'm not directly responsible, but State Bank as a whole is doing something to change our regulations to accommodate and to bring the fintech in the financial system. So definitely those central bank who said that they will not change, they will just lie. They have to change. Everybody have to change that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Faraz, I would like to have your thoughts on any concluding remarks, or like how you see the future of in these phenomena like industrial revolution, digital transformation, specifically in the fintech area.
Thank you very much, Farooq. Not a long statement to make. I think this is a long journey I think the persistence is going to be the solution. While we would adopt something, I think that thing is going to be subjected to change. So it's such a bit of an evolution we are basically noticing almost on a daily basis. Perhaps if I would describe that rightly, it's probably like an hourly basis. Previously, when I was using, Finextra, other sorts of news channels, wherein there are some notifications of the brilliant work that's being done by challenger institutions. So we usually used to find about maybe a couple of items per day. Now there's a long list, so more or less like 12, 13 odd items that come almost on a daily basis. So this is the kind of disruption that's happening. Essentially, there is a lot of freeform, there is a lot of regulatory evolution that we probably were expecting in the next couple of years, perhaps. And with that, there is a very serious transformation that we would or we should be looking for with respect to people and competencies. This is the area which probably is something, obviously, I think probably locally, I would probably say this is something that we probably have to be giving the most attention to. Because we could talk about technology, we could procure technologies, we could install technologies, but those technologies would probably be having zero value or lack of optimal value or suboptimal values if we are not willing to adapt to those technologies. So that's more or less like the cultural change and the competency change that we are expecting to happen in Pakistan. And we feel that there is going to be there is a very serious role on the part of State Bank of Pakistan, but we would be hoping that the entire regulatory enablement is going to be done through an ecosystem that's going to get developed around us, backed by government support and backed by the support of all the relevant stakeholders. So thank you so very much, Farooq and Riaz, and both Alif Technologies and Nibaf. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Now, Khatib, your concluding remarks. I think that you have been engaged with the industry at a global level. So please go ahead and share your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I really believe that the technology is moving much faster than we as humans and ability to adapt to technology. I don't believe it's a technology issue anymore. I think that the technology will continue to evolve, but I think we need to address some serious questions. We need to address the data privacy issue that we talked about. The security of the data, how as fast the technology is evolving, also the technology of hacking and the technology of getting into that data is evolving just as fast. So it's like a race between the good guys and the bad guys, and we need to really address a lot of these issues. That's on the human level, the global level. I am, as a non-Pakistani who's very interested in Pakistan, and I've been watching Pakistan for a long time, and I work with the Pakistani companies and banks and financial institutions for a long time. I'm very happy to hear these kind of discussions happening in Pakistan. And I really believe that the brain power and the knowledge is there if you can actually get engaged in the right initiatives. I think you, Pakistan, locally on the country level, you can play a tremendous role in this technology revolution and this human revolution that we're going to. So I wish Pakistan the best of luck, and I would like to conclude by thanking Alif Technologies and the organizers for allowing me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now, Shiv, definitely blockchain technology has transformed Internet of Communication into Internet of money and Internet of assets. So it's the future technology. So now, how do you think that where you are heading to, and this industry is heading to, actually?
Right. No, I think one of the challenges that we had with the internet was the lack of trust, right? And that is what blockchain is bringing to the table. And I think one thing we have to all acknowledge is that the world is changing. And I think looking at how the latest news from US with respect to the election, with respect to the privacy challenges, and also the amount of control that big organizations like Facebook, Twitter have, right? And this is where decentralization is what the world is moving towards, and it's the need of the hour as well. And I think looking at Pakistan and other developing nations, we have this huge opportunity in front of us where we can be a step ahead, right? Because most of the times when we look at developing nations, we are actually following the world, right? We are adopting, right, rather than innovating. And this is where that opportunity is here, the time is here, where we can innovate and we can basically get ahead of the world, right? And I think, and this opportunity is there. We have seen similar other developing countries taking the control and then creating a model which now they are proud of, right? And I think this is what we should be looking at. I think, and we have the capability, we have the technology, we have the assets, we have the knowledge, right? We are like the smartest people, right? And so we have access to all the knowledge and every expertise and everything, right? So it's about taking the control. It's about looking at challenges from an open mind and being able to basically keep even opening the culture as well, right? With respect to how we adopt these technologies and how we decentralize and do away with the mentality of control. I think that is what we should be looking at doing. With that, thank you very much for having me here. It was a very engaging conversation, and I've actually learned a lot from my fellow participants. And thank you very much for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good luck with the product. I really like the product also, and it won the award also. I mean, that is already a recognition there. So, Dr. Kaisar Inisa, would you like to have some concluding remarks, thoughts?
Yes, mashallah, I must say all our speakers which were there, I have learned a lot in this 2 hours. And especially, I was talking in general, as I said, I have done 4 or 5 webinars, but this is the most interesting webinar where the process has been explained. It is said you can go Russian digital, but on the back office, you see how much the process which been explained by everyone, like Sayyid Faraz Saab starting and Mohammad Khatib and Mr. Shiv and of course Dr. Javed is eye-opening for us. And it is challenge behind it to do seamless work and with control. It's a challenge for each organization. And onboarding of capital market, mashallah, transferring the asset to digitalized asset, this will take the country very fast. In my opinion, this digitalization will see, as Mr. Mohammad Khatib said, it will go very fast. And it is once you start walking, once the nation start walking, and everyone copying. Look, in 4 months, 100,000 accounts is opened. Imagine, 4 months, 100,000 account opened. I have $1 billion investment already parked there. $500 million from the Russian account, $500 million in capital market. So if it is discontinued, inshallah, Pakistan will grow. And similar other countries like Dubai, you can see, they have announced agri-tech, fintech, health tech. Technology is playing the role. Technology will take the 8 billion people lives improved better. We will be very happy to all technologists who are there. And we are all looking for the control, which is most important. And they have to save us from the hackers. Thank you very much again to Alif Technology, Mr. Asif the Great, and Mr. Farooq. And a special thanks from the State Bank of Pakistan, Mr. Riyaz Chunara. I commend them. They are the leaders. The Security Exchange of Pakistan, I really commend them. They are visionary. And they did a great job, I must say, during 2020 and 2021. Again, my comment and to all the speakers. And continue such events and webinar, because the more you do, the more the message goes to the people and they will understand about their digitalizing their transaction. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Riyaz Chunara.
Thank you, Farooq. I think it was,
can have one minute from you, please. Yeah.
That's right. So first of all, this is a big change. I think each change, like every change, is resisted. There is also resistance, but once we go into that front, I'm sure that things will come out. There's solutions to each problem, but there is a change. So this change resistance is there. But hopefully, this is something which will come in. Obviously, from payment perspective, from currency perspective, central bank is working. But for all other transactions, there are a lot of areas where digital assets have been used. For this, regulations still have to be formed. laws still have to be worked out. So it's a combined effort of all regulators and government of Pakistan to conduct so that this transition is smooth for this change. But there is a lot of opportunity, and this is something we have to opt for. We don't have a choice. So it's just a matter of time. And we have got examples of countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, China itself, India. So I think I'm sure that, in some cases we are a little behind, but inshallah we'll move forward pretty fast. Thank you. And thank you all the panelists and everybody,
Okay,
for this.
perfect. Asif. No, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Farooq. And
Riaz,
it was very interesting
something.
webinar, and we have learned a lot about. Riaz, Mr. Riaz was saying something. You finished?
I finished. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining in Alif Technologies. We are working in three, vertical pillars. One is that we are doing free educational webinars to update and bring awareness among the masses about this digitalization and technologies trend, which is going on. Second is we are doing consulting, and third we are doing development in blockchain technology. We have some softwares and other things like that. Today it was very interesting, webinar, and this speakers was outstanding. What they have defined the process of onboarding, digital onboarding, and it is the need of today for a digital economy that to onboard their customers digitally, and what are the hindrance and what are this obstacles during this onboarding, which have been defined by described by the State Bank of Pakistan also, which they are facing that one, and hopefully inshallah they will coop up this hindrance and this all the things. Thank you very much, everybody.
And
thank you so much
for everything. Farooq Habib, we did a great job. Really.
Okay, thank you so much.
Starting to now,
I really much thankful, and I also apologize for taking 13 minutes extra. But I really appreciate the patience from the participants and the generosity from our speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you on that 30 minutes.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
My best wishes to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.